guys, so today's video is me ranking books that I've read so far this year. I feel like it's like a factual thing that we're over halfway through the year, and this first half of the year was such an awful reading few months for me, mainly with just like, I was in a bit of a reading slump at the beginning of the year, as I usually am. I think January and February are really, really bad months for me. I feel like I come off like a really good like high of, oh my god, it's like pre-Christmas, and it's like it goes from like Halloween to like pre-Christmas and then New Year's, and I feel like January hits and I'm just like, what is life? I don't know what I'm doing. What's going on? And I feel like I always push reading to the side. It always ends in like a reading slump for me. So I feel like always January, February is like really bad. And then I start getting into like March and April, and I think my reading heavily picks up, except for me, that's when I was preparing to move out and like get my own place. So things started getting a bit hectic for me, and I think once again, reading kind of got pushed to the side. And then I moved out. So that was like March, April, I was reading a bit, and then May, I don't think I was reading much. And then June I moved out, and then June, July I was essentially sorting out my place, which I'm still sorting out because I decided to move into an unfurnished place. The way that it's eating through my bank account, I have never seen such a travesty before. I just do not understand. I do not understand the money leaving. I can't. It's like, yes, I am paying for things, and I do understand that when I press checkout, the money does leave my bank account, but the way that it's leaving my bank account feels like it's multiplied by like 3. I was like, I'm sure I didn't buy that much stuff. And furniture is very expensive. I know that I get to keep this for a long time, and I think it was like an older person in my life who has been through this before, has essentially said that like, you're really gonna have these expenses like every now and then, and once you kind of make those expenses once, you're usually not going to make them to this extent again. So like, you know, if I ever move to a bigger living room, this sofa might not end up in that living space, but it might end up in an office, or it might end up somewhere. Like, I'm not gonna have to, you know, and like my coffee table, I'm probably going to keep it for a few years. So even if I move to another apartment, that coffee table will be a coffee table, lamps will be lamps, bulbs, as long as they're working, will be bulbs, and kitchen bar stool chairs will be kitchen bar stool, like a bed will be a bed. Like, unless something like severely breaks, this intro is so long, but like, as long as something doesn't like severely break, I'm not gonna buy it again for a while. So like, I agree, but the last like 2 months of spending has been, and also just like the formalities of moving, where like paying a deposit or paying X amount of months of oh my god, my lord. Anyway, so I think it was just a lot of stress, and when there is a lot of stress, reading tends to get pushed to the side. So this list isn't as good as it could be. Like, I have not read many books at all, so it was very easy to rank them, and I want to rank them now because now I feel like my reading is picking up. I'm picking up a lot more physical books. I'm actually sitting down to read. I'm not just like putting in an audiobook and just going. Like, I'm actively like choosing to read. So I feel like from this point onwards, the ranking system is going to be a lot more different when I get to like December time. So I want to rank all of these struggle books. Like, I've struggled through these books, not because they were bad, they were very good, but I've like read. So I'm gonna rank all of these, and then I'll rank the next few months in December, and then I'll probably have to do like an overarching like yearly ranking, which is gonna be hell for me. Anyway, I actually have recently become a user of Notion. So I have an amazing system for ranking my books, and I can order them from 1 star to 5 star. I can put them in whatever order I need to put them, and I also put in like what format I was reading them in, which, bear in mind, the beginning of the year was so audio heavy, mainly because when you're in a reading slump, you listen to a lot of audiobooks because it feels like you're listening to a podcast or like you're watching a movie or something, instead of just sitting down and like physically reading. But also, moving house means your hands are usually not free. Like, I was usually reading books while I was unpacking, cleaning, you know, doing things like that. So it helped to have audiobooks. This would be a good moment to put in like an Audible sponsor. This video is not sponsored by Audible, but if Audible ever wants to sponsor me, that would be amazing, because a lot of audiobooks were read while I was unpacking my stuff. So sometimes I'd go through like 2 audiobooks in one day because I listen to them in like 2 point something speed. Sometimes it would be 2.5 audiobooks in a day, but then I would go into a reading slump again of like being overwhelmed, and then anyway, this is a kind of disappointing list for me, but we move. I have some that I've marked NA, like they don't have a rating, and those are either childhood books, like books from my childhood that are nostalgic, but I cannot objectively rank them because I will give them a 5 star, but are they objectively a 5 star read? No. If you don't have the nostalgia attached, you're not gonna give them a 5 star. So I've given those an NA rating. And then I actually have, on my Goodreads, I rank my non-fiction that I read. But for the purposes of this video, I have put all my non-fiction into the NA category. So I'll just read them out to you guys. A non-fiction rating just depends on your life, like your life experiences. So if you've experienced something that the book really like hits on well, you're going to give it a higher rating. But if you've never been through that thing, then it's going to be kind of useless to you, right? So I feel like non-fiction is a really weird one to rank for people. Like if it applies, it applies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there is one non-fiction that I have ranked because I think it's one of the, well, you'll find out. I did rank it with my other books because I thought it was, spoiler alert, I thought it was amazing. Any links or anything will be in description. Social media, I have a kind of drama-esque channel. I have a deep dive channel where I deep dive while doing my makeup into just different beauty topics. And then I also have a podcast. So the NA ones, I have Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. I don't have a lot of the authors written down, so I will just pop the book up on the screen and then you can just look it up. So Men Who Hate Women is a book about just men who hate women. Like it'll be like pickup artists, incels, the incel community on the internet, how that bleeds into life, how that bleeds into shootings, etc., domestic abuse. And I think with the rise of people like Andrew Tate and things, I think it's a very important read where like, yeah, jokes can be funny and like dark humor can be funny, but I think if you're saying things like one gender is better than the other, or like this gender is this gender's property, even if you're saying it as a ha ha he he, but you're presenting it as a fact, it's going to lead to a lot of violence against said gender. So Men Who Hate Women is great, but I'm just giving them an NA. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, Will I Ever Be Good Enough, Empire of Pain, which was on Barack Obama's, like, he does like a book list every year, and I think I saw it on Twitter, and then I just added it to my thing. That was a good read. Wild Game, which felt like a fiction book, but it was a non-fiction. It was written in a sense of like, it was a non-fiction book, but with the way that it was written, it almost felt like you're reading a fiction. And that's what made it so good, I think. Then we have The Elephant in the Room, which I cannot for the life of me remember what that was about. I think I just maybe read it because it was really short and I was trying to get my stats up, but I cannot remember what it was about. And then for the NA, Childhood Nostalgia. As you guys probably have seen if you've watched my book collection, I have the full collection so far of Witch graphic novels, and they're not like the original magazine versions or the original graphic novels. They are the updated, like reprinted ones that got released after Disney took over that, like, what's it called? That, not that franchise, like once Disney got like the licensing to it. They were reprinted with like modernized covers and yada yada yada. So basically I just have started collecting them again because I remember I used to read the magazines as a kid. So now they're like bunched up into graphic novels and they're like numbered. So I read 26, 27, 28, 29, but I'm not gonna rank them for you guys because like to me, they're a 5 out of 5. But to someone who's never read it before, it's just like a childish comic book, essentially. So anyway, now we're gonna get into the actual rankings. I'm gonna go worst to best. My worst this year has been a 2-star. And I'm kind of generous with my ratings, to be fair. Like, I think it takes a lot for me to give a book. I don't know if I've ever given a book a 1-star. I don't know what you would have to do for me to be like, ew, yuck, you know? I think I'm pretty like conscious of what books I pick up to read anyway, so that I feel like something really has to go wrong for me to give anything below like a 3-star. I think I'm very generous with my 4 and 5 stars. I'm not like stingy with it. So I have 2 that got 2-star rating. It's The Housemate is my worst book of the year. It's a mystery about a woman who has OCD because of something that she has kind of like her past life, like has led her to having some compulsive behavior, which that's kind of like the whole basis of, like, there are a lot of, there's a lot of repetition of things that she has to do, kind of sequences she has to go through, which I thought was a pretty interesting concept. And then after that, I think the rest was just the ending. I understand open endings and understand, not open endings, but almost like a story that is up for interpretation. I get that. I can use my brain to like figure out a storyline, but I just think it was such a mess. It just made no sense. And then I didn't understand the book towards the end. So I wasn't really focusing very hard because I just had to keep on like rewinding because I just wasn't focusing. So then I had to go on the internet and try and read what the book was about. And no one else really knew. Everyone else just had like their own theory. So I guess one of those books where like, it's up for your interpretation what happened. But it was done so poorly that really there is no story. Then we have the Honeymooners, which I gave a 2. Initially I gave it a 3, but I'm so upset about the ending that I actually bumped it down to a 2, because when I looked at the 3 list, like the list of 3 stars, it felt like it just didn't belong there. But I think 2 is too harsh. So maybe this is a 2.5 star read. Like, it's kind of like bang in the middle. Like, I don't really care for it. I think the beginning of the book was fine. I also don't think that the main characters had too much chemistry going on. Like, I think the chemistry was quite forced. Also, it's supposed to be an enemies to lovers. I don't even think they were enemies to begin with. It was a big miscommunication trope, which I hate. So it went from like mild enemies to mild lovers. There was zero chemistry throughout the book. In my opinion, it was very forced chemistry. Like, once they got going, like, it was fine, but you think about how they came to be enemies and the whole thing just doesn't make sense. And then towards the end, the main protagonist guy is unbearable. And I couldn't come back from it, because then I feel like at that point I'm like, oh, but like, I already know that I don't like you, and now I'm supposed to like, you're supposed to be like redeemed, but you're not redeemed in my eyes. Like, I don't think you're redeemed in any way. The protagonist's sister is also a shithead. The protagonist, like the male protagonist brother, is a shithead. So like, the female protagonist's sister is a shithead. The male protagonist is a shithead. The male protagonist's brother is also a shithead. So I really only feel bad for the female protagonist, and I don't want to feel bad for any of the protagonists at the end of the book if it's supposed to be a happy ending. But like, I just felt bad. I was just like, okay. And I'm giving this like a spoiler free, like, I'm just giving you guys a little rundown. Towards the end, obviously we get like a little bit of a happy ending, but I just don't think that the male protagonist was redeemed enough for the happy ending to feel warranted to me. So I just bumped this down from a 3 to a 2. But I think 2 is too harsh, so maybe a 2.5. I don't know, it just wasn't my favorite book. I'm just so angry about like these characters. They just weren't that great. Then we have the 3-star books. The Legacy, which is Off Campus number 5. So essentially, the Off Campus series by L. Kennedy is like 4 books where there are 4 different couples, but they're like all friends, and they're in the same year at uni, if that makes sense. Like, they're all going through uni together. So it's like 4 books. And then she has another 4 books, which are like, once these lot leave school, there's like another 8 people, so like 4 couples coming into school. So it's the same thing, but just later. And then in between those books, essentially, she released The Legacy, which was supposed to be 4 short stories regarding the first 4 couples. And I thought it was fine, but it was super unnecessary, kind of unmemorable. Like, I don't really remember what happened with each of the couples. I think she wanted to capitalize, of course, because she's an author and she needs to make money. I'm not like shitting on her for it. I love Elle Kennedy, I love her books, but I just think it was an easy way to capitalize on the hype of the original 4 books. But I just don't think it was warranted, and I think it was fine the way things were left. And it didn't need an explanation. Like, I already had a story in my head. You guys know how I feel about like sequels and prequels as well. I just don't think they're very necessary 99% of the time. So this was just unnecessary, but I read it because it was short and because I had really enjoyed the characters from the first like set of books. So I just thought, like, you know, it won't hurt, and it didn't hurt, but I also don't think it was that necessary. So I think the 3-star is very warranted in this case, where it was like, it wasn't necessary, but it also like didn't hurt my brain. So anyway, after that we have The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Okay, so I actually really like her books. I think I read another book by her. Yes, okay, so I read The Guest List and I read The Paris Apartment. I actually think, so The Guest List was kind of a controversial, like, it was a love or hate. Some people really hated it. Some people really loved it. I personally really liked it. I thought it was an interesting concept. I actually gave it a 5-star. That is so generous. I think now I would bump it down to a 4. I think a lot of the times I come off reading a book and I initially give it a rating, and then I go back through all my ratings and adjust them. And usually I dock off 1 star at least, because I think I come off like the excitement, and then I can clearly think about what the book was actually about. I just think I really enjoyed it because I got through it really quickly. I think I listened to it in like 1 go. So that's why I gave it a 5-star. I think I'd give it a 4 now. Let me adjust that. It has a 3.85. I think the guest list was kind of controversial, but I really liked it. I loved the setting. I liked the plot. I liked the vibes. I liked that it was multiple POV, but it was done really well. So I actually liked Lucy Foley. And then she came out with The Paris Apartment recently. It was February this year. And I listened to it on audiobook and I thought it was disappointing. And I think a lot of other people are sharing the same opinion as me. So far it's 180,000 ratings, a lot, but it's below a 4-star. It's 3.69 and I gave it a 3. This guy lives in Paris and his sister comes to see him after things kind of go wrong in her life, just to like stay with him for a bit. She gets there and he's not in his apartment, and she essentially has to figure out like where her brother went. But it's all happening in this like apartment building, and she meets like a lot of people from the apartment, and she like deals with them, and you get multiple POVs again, and I think the POVs are done really well. I think Lucy's Foley is very good at doing multiple POVs where you can actually tell whose perspective you're reading from. Mainly when it's in an audiobook, because then the voices are different, but you can tell in the way she writes things that there is a different voice there. I just think it was a very weak storyline. So it was a 3-star. I listened to this while I was doing all my chores in my house, so it was fine, but I don't think it was all that. Then we have Radio Silence is a 3-star for me. It's a YA, which makes sense that I would give it a 3-star. I think if I read it when I was like 15, 16, I would have given it like a 4-star. I thought it was really good. It was really well written. I just think it is like a YA book. These people are in college, which in the UK, college is between the ages of 16 and 18 versus like university in America is called college. We say college about like A-level time, which is 16 to 18. And I'm 22, so reading about 16 to 18-year-olds sometimes can feel a little bit childish, like the way they do things, the way they communicate, the problems they have. Like, of course, when I was 16, the problems I had seemed massive, and then now looking back on them now, I'm like, it's not that massive. And I'm not saying 16-year-olds don't go through crazy things. Do not take me out of context. I'm just saying in this case, like the miscommunication, losing friends, yada yada yada, like it's just not for me anymore. Does that make sense? So I think I like books that are like university and up, like first year of uni up, whereas this was university down. And as a 22-year-old, I just always feel like, yeah, it's a nice book, and I would have really liked it when I was 16, but now I'm 22, and I can judge it objectively, but subjectively, it just isn't for me. So I gave it a 3-star, but probably it would have been a 4 if I was the target age demographic. So then we have We Were Liars, which was hyped up on TikTok, and it's essentially a story about these rich, very like rich, like generations of money, not like new money, but like old money rich, who own an island that they always go to every summer. Wish that was me. Imagine having a private island that you go to every summer. Crazy vibes. But they go there, and there's these 4 teenagers that hang out, and something happened the year before, but no one's telling the main character, so she's just kind of going through it while like everyone's kind of walking on eggshells around her. And that was all amazing. I actually really liked it. I loved the book up until the end, and I would have given it probably a 4-star right up until the end, and then the ending happened, and oh boy did the rating drop. I was debating between a 2 and a 3, but I ended up going with a 3 because I think in this case no one became dislikable to me. No one, like, it wasn't like on Honeymooners where I just couldn't get past certain things. Like, this was just like a disappointing ending, and that was really it. But it wasn't like I was like, oh I can't redeem this. Like, this was just kind of like a meh, like whatever. So I gave it a 3, but I think that's kind of generous, but I also don't want to give it a 2, so it's a 3. Then we have Don't Ever Tell, which is, I forgot what this book, I thought this was a very different book. Okay, so Don't Ever Tell by Lucy Dawson. I'm actually going to put that at the bottom of 3 stars. So it's Don't Ever Tell, The Legacy, The Paris Apartment, Radio Silence, and We Were Liars. I don't know why I put it at the top of the list. It definitely wasn't. It's basically this thing about like a couple that's married, and the wife like is not content with the relationship and wants to leave. I completely forgot about this book actually, and I thought it was a different book. Like, I thought this book was a completely different book. So this one is actually the lowest on the 3-star rating scale. I thought it was alright, but I don't think it was all that. I can't actually say anything without spoiling it. Like, even the blurb, I was like, huh? Like, this just makes no sense. The main character's like an author and she's writing this book. I don't know. I thought it was a 3-star. Like, I just don't remember what happened, so clearly it wasn't that fantastic. Now we're jumping into the 4 stars. We have One Last Secret by Adele Parks. This book actually came out... Whoa, that's so weird. So apparently this book hasn't come out yet. It's supposed to have dropped 27th of December 2022, but we are in 2022 and it's not December. I found it on Audible, and when I added it to Goodreads, it didn't even have a cover yet. And now it has a cover, which I'm assuming was released recently. I don't know how I managed to get early access to this book on Audible, but it is on Audible. So anyway, I read it. It's about a sex worker who stops being a sex worker to be with someone, and then she gets like a last call to do a job. She goes for it, and then a lot of things get uncovered, and it is a wild ride. I gave it a 4-star. I thought it was written really, really well, and I thought the twists were really good, and I really liked the main character. I thought she was great, so it was good. But obviously with mysteries, I can't tell you guys too much because the whole point of a mystery is to be mysterious. Then we have The Last to Disappear by Jo Spain. I love Jo Spain. I know her books can be a bit hit or miss sometimes. I know some people are like, you know, whatever, but I actually really like her. I like the way she writes books, and I think they're like a cozy mystery. Like, you can just read it in your free time. I usually only read them on audiobook because I think they're just like a good listen to. So I've read Dirty Little Secrets, The Confession, The Perfect Life, No, The Perfect Lie, Six Wicked Reasons. I just didn't read her like series. She's got like a series. I read all of her like singles, all of the lonesome books, the ones that aren't a series. So this one that just came out is called The Last to Disappear, and I love these kinds of settings. It's basically wintertime. It's a luxury winter resort, like a skiing resort. Oh my god. Basically there are 3 missing women and people are trying to figure out how the plot, like how they're all linked. Oh my god, perfect mystery. I love it. I give it a 4-star. I don't think it's like a 5-star, but it's like very good. It's like a 4.5. I initially, when I read it, gave it a 5-star, but now I've bumped it down to like a 4.5, 4, just because the excitement is like over. I thought it was really good though. And it's one of those where it doesn't try to be too smart. I don't like when mysteries are trying to be too smart. Like, don't try to outsmart me. This one, it gives you hints, and it's not like it's trying to do a plot twist that is so plot twisty that like it stops making sense. Like, everything still makes sense. Then we have The Evidence, which is by K.L. Slater. And the tie-up between The Last to Disappear and The Evidence right now, like, they are so interchangeable for me. I think they were both great, and I can't pick my favorite because they're so different. So treat these two as if they're kind of on the same spot. But essentially, so this one is about someone that is basically creating a true crime podcast about this woman in the UK who murdered her husband, and they're trying to get out of her like why she did it, essentially. And at the same time, the creator of that podcast is going through her own crisis where you're trying to figure it out. And the plot twist in this one was absolutely magnificent. Again, like, I just think it wasn't trying to be smart. It wasn't trying to create a plot twist that is just unbelievable and like it destroys the whole book. But I thought it was great. I thought it was amazing. So I think this one and The Last to Disappear are just like the kind of mysteries that I really like, essentially. And then the last one in 4 is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I really liked it. It's about, so this woman, what is her name? I always forget main characters' names. So Kenna went to jail for getting into a car accident and killing her spouse, her fiance, the guy she was with. This isn't a spoiler. This literally happens in the first chapter. Like, they talk about it. This is like years after. So essentially, once she leaves jail, she's trying to find her child that she had with him right as she went to jail, who obviously the custody was given to the partner's parents. Oh. And she's basically coming into town to try and find her child, and she comes across Ledger, who this is essentially an enemies to lovers. He's very like upset about her because he's her fiance's best friend, and then it goes through like a them kind of, you know. I thought it was great. It was a 4-star read. I think I've only read a few Colleen Hoover books. I thought this one was above average for Colleen Hoover. I thought this one was great. Then we get into 5-star books of this year. There's only 6. Actually, oh my god. So the 5-star section is the biggest section. This is why I say I am so generous with my ratings. If I feel comfy reading a book, I will give it a 5-star. So the first one in the 5 stars is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson, which is the Truly Devious series. It's the 4th one in the series. I love this series. I think it's such an easy read. It's like a mystery, but young adult, which I did just say that I don't like young adult, but this one is very like not young adulty. Like, it doesn't deal with young adult issues necessarily. It's mainly focused on the mystery at hand, and I just really like the setting. I like the boarding school vibes most of the time. This one is in like a camp, and it's just part of the series that I really enjoy. I really like the Truly Devious books. I think they're just such an easy read. You could probably read it in a day if you really put your mind to it, because they're really good. They're like comfy. I'm giving this one a 5-star just purely out of comfort. Then we have Normal People by Sally Rooney, which I just finished recently, and this was the first book that I annotated and like, you know, did my thing on. And it's a very hit or miss book. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally love it. It's about like a friends of benefits. So it's full of miscommunication, slight toxicity, but it just talks about like real issues of modern dating. And I just really, really liked it. I thought it was great. Then we have All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, which is her first book that I've read, and I think her writing style is so good. It's basically a romance about a woman that moves back to her town that her mother is from. Her mother passed away, and she's coming back to like live the life that her mum would have wanted for herself, but also for it's just like she's trying to live in her mother's footsteps, essentially, after getting a bit lost in her past relationship. She comes back to like old town and just wants to live a normal life. And she comes across this guy, and essentially it's kind of like not enemies to lovers, but he's grumpy and she's sunshine a little bit. And I think it's also a slow burn, very slow burn. I think you don't even get any like amazing interactions until probably 65% of the book in. The vibes were good, the setting was amazing, I thought the way it was written was great. For a romance, it had more going for it than just the romance. Like, I think because it's a slow burn, the first 65% of the book isn't just like romance. It's like a building of the setting, of other relationships. Like, I thought it was just a really well put together romance novel, if you guys want to read something. Then we have, oh, right above that, Beach Read by Emily Henry. Wow, is she an amazing romance writer, romance author. I think even people that don't like romance are really enjoying her books. I think she writes really compelling characters, amazing settings, amazing plots, and just things more than just romance. Like with the Mariana book, with the All Roads Lead Here, I think it's romance plus other plot. Instead of romance just being like the only thing going for it, I think you have like all of this other stuff. And I think that was the same with Beach Read, but I thought it was even more well developed. Like, I think the characters were great, they're realistic, the plot is amazing, the setting is fantastic, and there's just so much going on. There's such well-rounded characters and it's such a well-rounded story. I think Beach Read is so good, and I can't wait to read other Emily Henry books. I've got the People We Meet on Vacation, and I've also got Book Lovers ready to read. And then this is my first, well, this is the only non-fiction I'm putting into the ranking, and it's because she really did that with her book, and it's Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died. 5-star read immediately. When I stopped listening to it, I actually got it on audio the day that it launched because it was easier than trying to like order it to my house or trying to get it in physical, because it's sold out everywhere. Like, it's nowhere to be seen. I wanted to actually buy a physical copy just to have it because it's such a good book, but it's nowhere. So I'm gonna wait. But I listened to it and I finished it in a day. And when I finished it, I wanted to just restart it straight away. It was so amazing. Basically, if you guys don't know, Jeanette McCurdy was Sam in iCarly on Nickelodeon, and then she was in Sam and Cat with Ariana Grande, and it talks about her abusive relationship with her mum, as in her mum was abusive to her, not the other way around, and also just like the issues with being a child star, being exploited by adults. Amazing book, fantastic book. Please give Jeanette McCurdy's book a read. It's so good, very good, but like very like good in a way that makes you uncomfortable because it's so real, but like very well written, so good. And then my favorite book of the year is one that I've hyped up all year, and it's Verity by Colleen Hoover. It's a mystery thriller about an author that gets a deal to write a book on behalf of someone else, essentially, who can't write, like finish her series. And it's this guy that comes to her with this offer, and it's for his wife. So his wife can't finish her series. She's a like prolific writer. She can't finish her series. So he's like, hey, could you finish this series for my wife? Because she can't do it. And you can come like live with us, and you can read through her, like all her manuscripts and her planning, and like you can go through her office and then just finish the book. And so she kind of moves in with them, and that's where the thriller mystery starts. And I don't want to spoil anything because it's so good. Amazing book. And then it jumps from, it's almost dual POV, but not really. So it's one chapter will usually be like current day, what's going on in the house, and then it will jump to her reading a manuscript from the wife. And it is so exquisite, like just things you couldn't even imagine. Like, it's written so amazingly well. And it's Colleen Hoover's first non-romance book, and I think she did an amazing job. And if she doesn't continue to write mystery thrillers, I will be upset. And that is the book ranking for this year. No, for the first half of the year. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to the bell, like, comment for engagement, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.